Always the latest news and views. You're listening to the Montreal Now podcast with Aaron Rand.
We strongly encourage other nations whose economies depend on the Strait far more than ours. We get less than 1% of our oil from the Strait. Some countries get much more. Japan gets 95%. China gets 90%. Many of the Europeans get quite a bit. So we want them to come and help us with the Strait. We have it in very good shape. The countries, I said, we've already taken care of Iran, but now, because of the fact that literally a single terrorist can put something in the water or shoot something or shoot a missile, and it's fairly close range because it is a tight area, Iran has always used that as an economic weapon.
That's Donald Trump earlier in the day tried to justify, I guess, the call out to some allies to help clear the Strait of Hormuz. He mentioned, of course, some of the Asian countries that get a far more oil than the U.S. does, which kind of makes you wonder perhaps why the need for this then. But let's try to find out more. David Fraser is a retired Major General here in Canada and on the line. Major General, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Very much appreciate it.
Aaron, good to be with you.
Let me ask if I can. First, with respect to this comment, I think there are a lot of people, maybe you're one of them, trying to understand what exactly is the play here for Donald Trump. What is he looking for in calling on allies to be able to help here? Why?
Well, I think right now that he started this operation without any consultation, and he thought it was going to be ending in probably a few hours or a few days, much like Venezuela. But he's now actually found out it's a lot more complicated than he thought, and he's in trouble. Politically, he's in trouble. Militarily, he's doing a great job, but politically, economically, this is taking a lot more effort, and he needs other people to come in there and help him. And notwithstanding, he says that 90% of China gets their oil through this Strait of Hormuz. They don't. They only get about 40%. Still a big number, but he needs other people to justify what he's doing.
And so far what we've seen is some of those people, some of those countries are simply saying, you know what, this isn't our war, it's not NATO's war, and they're kind of pulling back, suggesting they won't be helping. What does that change?
Well, again, what we've seen is the military operation is now turning into a diplomatic operation. And, and the good news is it's turning into a diplomatic operation because countries are going to tell Trump and the administration, go talk to Iran and end this war so we can get the economic flow going through the Strait of Hormuz. And, if you do that, we'll probably continue to talk to you about what we can do to support you. But until then, no thanks. And, fundamentally, this is not a NATO problem. It's a problem for nations that have got interest in the region, but it's not NATO, and he's trying to sort of, expand the argument against NATO, which isn't true because NATO was there to support the United States at 9/11.
Look, strategically, if I could, and I appreciate your insight on something like this, I heard a couple of people talking about the fact that, by virtue of Iran attacking some of those other countries in the Gulf, so Bahrain, Qatar, Saudi, Kuwait, Dubai, etc., most of whom, if not all of whom, have American bases or installations of some kind. This is designed to basically get those countries to put pressure on the U.S. to say, look, we're not directly involved. We don't want to be directly involved. Not happy about having, of course, drones or bombs or missiles land there. Is that the play here that you see playing out in the long run, where all these other Gulf states come together and say, okay, enough is enough, and it's time for you to stop this?
I think that's part of it. I think, Iran's being very strategic in trying to engage the American interests around the region to put pressure on those governments to put pressure on the United States. But Iran has gone and talked so many civilian states, too, that, their argument is really weakened. And it's just now everybody's really upset in the region against Iran. And again, that goes back to United States, that you started this war, and there was no real justification to start a war with a country like Iran, notwithstanding that they are, the world's leaders in exporting terrorism around the world for 47 years. But did we need to go to war, or were there other means to deal with Iran? And I think that's the diplomatic questions that are going on right now.
Well, let me ask the question then, as you just brought up. Were there other means? Because we're hearing two different stories. We actually had the Iranian foreign minister on national TV in the U.S. yesterday saying negotiations have never even started, despite what Donald Trump suggested, that, they were going well and then they weren't going well, and that's why we did this. Who are we supposed to believe here?
Well, first of all, I would not believe the foreign minister for Iran, but at the same time, internationally and through the UN, we did have an agreement where there was a nuclear agreement where we could get nuclear inspectors into Iran to see what was going on. Not perfect, but better than what we have now, which is we have no access whatsoever. There were negotiations going on. The Minister of Oman was actually talking with all the parties, and, those negotiations never really got off the ground. Intelligence from Israel and U.S. said we can get rid of the regime after Venezuela. They thought they could do it quickly, and look at the mess we're in right now.
Yeah.
So there were other means to be done that not we, but the United States chose to ignore, and here we are.
Was it short-sighted to think you could effect regime change by just going ahead and bombing all their military installations and then think that would be enough for this regime to fall?
Yes. We have been talking in the West for decades about how we could get the population of Iran, which is being oppressed by this regime, to rise up against the Ayatollahs and the Council of Experts and things like that. And I think it was just really naive to think by just taking out the Ayatollah and a few layers of leadership that would be all that would be necessary to get the people. This is a very complicated society, very embedded religious hierarchy that as the regime has shown, it is very capable of surviving for the midterm. So I think there was a gross overestimation based on recent experience in the United States, emboldened by the Prime Minister of Israel to finish off business that has been bugging them for years.
What do you think with respect to the history of regime change in general, right? Typically, at least from what I'm reading, this never works out very well, does it?
No, and I've experienced a couple of it. Look how regime change worked in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Libya. None of it has worked. And I thought, the West would have learned our lesson after a few decades of doing this and bumbling around and making a mess of it. And here we are yet again in Iran, which is a really, really big nation. And we're stuck in a war that is actually affecting you and I at the gas pumps.
The other thing that's now come up, and I asked this question of our audience today, with respect to Canada's potential involvement. And I bring this up because, of course, as I said, Donald Trump did reach out today to some allies, Japan, Germany, France, etc., to try to get some support here. And my question was, should Canada, and I know there's been a survey on this, there's an Ipsos poll out asking what Canadians think of whether Canada should get involved. If asked by the U.S. here, what's your thought on that?
Well, Canada doesn't have much interest in the area. There's no NATO requirement for us to do anything over there. If we did anything over there, it would be purely in a defensive mode if we were asked. We've not. And, the bigger issue is who's calling the shots? This is not a coalition of the willing. This is Donald Trump deciding, and listening to Donald Trump with his conversation with the UK Prime Minister when the Prime Minister said he's got to talk to his team. That's called democracy. And Trump said, you don't have to talk to your team. So again, for Canada to go into any operation with a president that, views democracy like that, I don't think there's any interest for Canada to participate. And what we could participate would be very limited anyway.
Some of the people we talked to expressing opinions suggested not only should Canada participate, we shouldn't wait to be asked, we should volunteer. What do you make of that?
Again, we don't run to the sound of the guns because the situation over there is not under control. The United States was the most capable military in the world, and they've got all the capability. They are still dealing with a country that has a punch and a bite, and the country that has lost most of its capability still has a strategic effect just by saying that they can close the Strait of Hormuz to those who they don't like, and they still can send a drone, hundreds if not thousands of kilometers away to destroy something. So this is not something for Canada to get involved in. We are a small nation. We work within coalitions, and we do not do things unilaterally, especially in a situation as complicated as this. Final
question I'll ask you, if you were a betting man, how do you think this ultimately ends?
I think it ultimately ends where there's enough international pressure with the president that he has to find a solution with whoever he can talk to in Iran to pull out, because the longer he stays there, the more it affects the economy. He's got midterms coming up, and it's going to make trade with all these countries around the world even more difficult, including his biggest trading adversary, which is China, which he's got a trip potentially scheduled in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, to your point, I'm just seeing now there's a headline or a bulletin here suggesting he's going to put off that trip, asking China to reschedule their summit because of what's going on right now in Iran. So there you go.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Major General, very much appreciate your time. Thank you so much for the insight.
Aaron, thank you very much.
You bet. David Fraser, retired Major General here in Canada.
Canadian women are looking for more out of themselves, their businesses, their elected leaders, and the world around them.
And that's why we're thrilled to introduce the Honest Talk podcast.
I'm Jennifer Stewart.
And I'm Catherine Clark. And in this podcast, we interview Canada's most inspiring women.
Entrepreneurs, artists, athletes, politicians, and newsmakers, all at different stages of their journey.
So if you're looking to connect, then we hope you'll join us.
Listen to the Honest Talk podcast on iHeartRadio or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
The information and the interesting talk to follow. This is the Montreal Now podcast with Aaron Rand.
Quebec Finance Minister Éric Girard yesterday dropping the provincial budget, letting us know what's in store as well. He is on the line. Minister, thank you for your time.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Let me begin by asking, and I understand it is the opposition's job to oppose, but it's being called, I think uniformly here from the opposition anyway, what they're saying is a lazy budget because it gives nothing back to consumers. There's no broad tax cuts, no checks to households, nothing like that. Why is that? And is this all because of what particular reason?
What we did is a responsible budget in a very uncertain period. We have a Middle East war, we have a tariff conflict, and we have an election coming in October. And so we decided to be responsible, sober. So we increase infrastructure, we increase the core mission of the state, justice, healthcare, education, higher education. And we improve public finance by doing less. We're doing more because we are reducing the deficit for 24-25, 25-26, 26-7. So we're improving public finance, and we have less debt today than in proportion of the economy than when we came to power. It's very important to say. Our deficit is small, at less than 1% of GDP. So by having strong public finance, we're sending a signal of confidence in a very uncertain period.
So you've also heard different sectors. I know the money is there for healthcare and education. We had the chair of the English board on saying there's really not much in here at all. In fact, it won't even cover the increased cost to them because it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 2.6%. Your budget, to speak to this idea...
It's really 3% for education, which is exactly what was being asked as a minimum. But it's 3% because you need to correct for the fact that there was an expense last year for immigration that's not there. When you correct for that, the 2.4 becomes 3%, okay. And it is exactly what was being asked.
Okay, they're suggesting it's not. Your budget is built on real GDP growth, I think about 1.1%, right? And I want to go back to what you said before. We're kind of living through very uncertain times right now, and I think most people understand that. I think from what I've read, forecasters expect sub 1% growth, and they're warning about tariff shocks. You're projecting 1.1. Are you not concerned about those, and should they have not changed?
What we do when we do a budget, we consult the economists of the private sector, the large bank, Desjardins, and we do a high, low, average, and we're bang on for this year for the forecast. We're using the consensus economic forecast, and for next year, we're below, more conservative. So really, if you've heard that critique from the opposition, it doesn't make any sense.
Okay, well, interesting you mentioned Desjardins. I have a note saying their chief economist says that your outlook rests on hopes about the trade file, and that's not really a prudent forecast. What's your answer to that?
Oh, he refers to the fact that to balance the budget in 29-30, there is $2 billion that is unexplained.
Right.
And the reason it is unexplained is that we had to table a return to balance plan or a plan to balance the budget within 5 years in March 25. So if you remember, in January 2025 was the inauguration of the President Trump. In February 2025, he threatened us with tariff on all goods and services. And so when we tabled the budget in March 25, we could not go and have enough money to balance the budget in year 5. We're missing $2 billion. And this is the part that is unexplained. So again, I certainly accept that it could be better, it could be explained, but we're living in a very difficult period. We have one of the lowest deficits in the country, sub 1% of GDP. BC was downgraded today. New Brunswick tabled a 3% deficit to GDP. Nova Scotia is at 2.7. A lot of provinces are struggling. Sub 1%, we're way beyond the national average. We're doing a good job of managing public finance. And yes, there could be upside if we have a USMCA agreement. The upside will cover the $2 billion that's missing. And if the U.S. were to pull out of USMCA, we're going to have a recession in North America, not only in Quebec and in Canada.
Okay, understood. I will ask about a couple of other areas just very quickly. With respect to infrastructure, there's this opinion here in Montreal, which is where we are, that the CAQ government, and with the money set aside here, doesn't really care much about Montreal. The STM, aging infrastructure, they say $3 billion over 10 years or $3.5 billion over 10 years, but most of that money is set to not come until 2030. And funding over the next 5 years has actually been decreased. So we're dealing with aging infrastructure, not enough money to repair it, and that's Montreal specifically. So why is that?
This is so unfair as a comment. I don't know where to start. We are accelerating infrastructure spending by $2 billion before March 31st, 2026. And where is that money going? In the Montreal subway and in the expansion of the Blue Line. And with respect to hospital, can I name you 2 hospitals that we're in the process of renovating? Currently in realization, we're putting extra money. The Lakeshore Hospital and the Montreal, the Jewish Hospital.
Jewish General?
We call it the Jewish.
Yeah.
It's the Jewish General.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So, quite frankly, I wish sometimes people would actually read the budget before making these claims.
So that claim came from the head of the STM. I didn't make that up. Just saying.
Understood.
Okay.
We're accelerating $2 billion of funding before March 31st, 2026 for the Montreal subway and the Blue Line.
Okay. You mentioned the Montreal General and the Lakeshore. There's a big question and a very sharp critique here with respect to Maisonneuve-Rosemont. And because we know it's aging, there's nothing in here apparently specifically to that.
Again, Aaron, please. We are increasing funding for l'Hôpital Maisonneuve-Rosemont by billions of dollars. We're currently working on the parking lot in order to prepare for the construction. We are provisioning large sum of money in order to go and do a tender process for construction, engineering work, and in due time we'll go in realization, and when we go into realization, the billions necessary to do the hospital will have been provisioned before.
With all due respect, Minister, this is not a new plan. It's been there since 2024, and the head of the Maisonneuve-Rosemont Hospital says he'd been hopeful there would be money in this budget to just begin major work. I know you mentioned the parking lot. What about the hospital?
There is billions with an S for the hospital in this budget. We do not disclose these amounts for competitive purposes. We do not want contractors to know how many billions we have to build the hospital. This hospital could cost as much as $5 billion. So we are not revealing how much we are provisioning, but we are provisioning to build Maisonneuve-Rosemont.
Okay.
And I understand that I have some sympathy for the fact that they've been working in an hospital that is in in difficult condition. But if there is a winner in this budget with respect to infrastructure, it is the healthcare sector. Let me name you a few hospitals that we're doing. Vaudreuil, Arthabasca, the Jewish General, Charles Lemoine, Chicoutimi, Sept-Îles, Lévis, Saint-Jérôme, Mont-Laurier, and we are provisioning billions for Maisonneuve-Rosemont and others hospitals.
Okay. I guess my only comment on that would be it's fine to provision the money. I think their concern seems to be, can we get a start date on when we can start using this money?
Yes, as soon as we have engineering plan, architectural plan, and we can have a tender process in order for these contracts to be awarded, and we're ready to go.
Last thing I will ask you before I have to let you go, Andre Fortin, the Liberal finance critic, said this with respect to something else in the budget. Take a listen to this.
The finance minister yesterday decided to take $1.3 billion from money that Quebecers could use today to fix healthcare, to fix infrastructure, to fix all of their current daily needs, and give it to Christine Fréchette and Bernard Drinville to have an electoral slush fund for the CAQ. That's basically what they did yesterday.
A lot of people are wondering why that's even there, and that does seem a bit strange. So what's the answer to that?
Wow. Okay, let me start. We had a decision to make whether we were going to do a budget before March 31st or after April 12th. Okay, why did we go with before March 31st? Because we wanted to provide responsible continuity of governments to Centre de Service Scolaire or school board. Actually, in English, we have school board. To Centre Intégré de Santé et Services Sociaux, to community groups, to businesses. For example, with respect to homelessness, the federal government was providing $25 million a year the last 2 years. They pull out their funding. If I do not come and cover the federal government for $25 million on April 1st, funding expires. So we did. So we're providing continuity of government. Because there will be a new premier after April 12th, I've reserved $250 million for one announcement or two with respect to the cost of living difficulties that Quebecers are facing. We will be the government with a premier as part of the budget. We're allowed to provide some funding for cost of living help to Quebecers, and to call this an electoral slush fund is quite frankly ridiculous.
All right. Minister, I always appreciate your time. I thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Canadian women are looking for more out of themselves, their businesses, their elected leaders, and the world around them.
And that's why we're thrilled to introduce the Honest Talk podcast.
I'm Jennifer Stewart.
And I'm Catherine Clark. And in this podcast, we interview Canada's most inspiring women.
Entrepreneurs, artists, athletes, politicians, and newsmakers, all at different stages of their journey.
So if you're looking to connect, then we hope you'll join us.
Listen to the Honest Talk podcast on iHeartRadio or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Your city at your leisure. This is the Montreal Now podcast with Aaron Rand.
So, you know by now, of course, when there was a mayoral campaign, part of Soraya Martinez-Ferretta's campaign was all about making Montreal a cleaner city. That was one of the things promised. And I know a lot of us have become kind of cynical, right? Because promises made during a campaign, end of the day or end of the term, not often or not always met. So far, though, you have to be impressed with the fact that promise is being acted on. Claude Pinard, who's chair of Montreal's executive committee yesterday, announcing that the city would be launching a major spring cleaning campaign, which is going to launch earlier, actually now, and actually end later in the middle of December. And that's just part of a campaign to what he called Make the City Shine Again. I spoke to him earlier in the afternoon and asked Claude Pinard to outline what the city is doing.
Basically, what we announced yesterday was a increased cleanliness operation. So that's the number one thing. So first of all, we're gonna spend more time doing it. So we're starting sooner. So this morning, had the weather been okay for to have trucks watering the streets and stuff like that, they would have been ready. So that's number one thing. Trucks and operating machines are ready. That's number one thing. And then we're gonna go further down all the way to December 15 approximately, in order to spend more time in the field. So what we're doing now, over and above having the trucks and operators ready, we're adding squads, cleanliness squads, like just about everywhere. And we also made an analysis of areas that needed more love, if I can put it this way, or more time to focus, in order to have more trucks, more squads, and make sure that Montrealers see a difference.
So a couple of things in here that stand out. Number one, you're starting earlier, as you said, and you're ending later. So that's step one. I know with respect to blue-collar workers, some people will be saying, well, wait a sec, where do we have the money for this, or how's that going to work? But you're suggesting it's not about that. It's about taking your resources and better appropriating them.
No, absolutely. It's kind of a problem when your city is not clean, reputation-wise. It just doesn't make sense. And then again, it impacts also the sense of security of people. And then the neighborhood life and commercial streets are not as made it as they should be. So we're not hiring any new people. We're just rearranging the work, but also, counting on some efficiency that we're going to gain working the way we are working. So just to make sure that we follow everything that's being done, we'll have the proper teams doing the proper thing at the right time. So that's very important for us. And one thing, Aaron, that I've been giving as an example the last couple of days is how about we looked at the schedule of picking up garbage. So right now, if you arrive downtown Montreal at 7:30, you'll see all the garbage bags lining up the streets. Why can't we look at those being picked up earlier? And maybe that's going to help. That's going to help first the cleanliness of the city, but also the fact that there's a lot of people, scavengers, that are just going around, and the people in different kind of situations just going around in bags, trying to get. To pick up cans and stuff like that. So, and then, they just like rip open bags and do what they have to do. So that's what we're trying to do. So change maybe the schedule. We're looking at that right now and have more frequency where there's a lot of restaurants, another example. So we're going to be changing the way we do things. It's not going to cost more money because we have to be responsible. It's a better usage of the workforce and the blue collar we have.
So one of the other issues in here, you say you're increasing funding to local business development associations. So you're making it someone else's responsibility here, not just the city's. How is that going to work?
So it's I'm happy you're talking about this because there's one thing I'm absolutely convinced. Alone, the city alone cannot do this. So we need the help of everybody. So and those local Société de Développement Commercial or Commercial Development Corporation that we use locally, they already have those brigade that go around and pick up garbage bag and make sure that the areas are clean. It exists in downtown Montreal. It exists in old Montreal. So they already exist. So we just decided to increase their financing a little bit so that they can have again more frequency. But that's the one key thing, Aaron, about what we're trying to do now is we need everybody, because like I said, alone we can do it. We're going to need people, businesses. We're going to need people, citizens, taking stock of what's happening. And one example I want to give you is this morning it took me like a minute more than usual to get out of my neighborhood because I stopped a couple of times picking up garbages because of the high winds. Right, not my job, but you know what? I felt like my neighbor needed a little help so that he wouldn't see his garbage cans all over in the afternoon. So we need that kind of civic engagement and civil engagement so that we can tackle this issue.
When you call on citizens of the city to play their part, what does that mean? Is it about seeing garbage and picking it up on your own? Beyond that, what does it mean?
It's everyday thing. If I just giving an example this morning to a friend, if you have a pack of gum and it's finished and you're crossing a garbage can and it's full, why don't you keep it in your pocket a bit more to make sure? It's about you see a piece of paper on the floor, just pick it up. I mean, your neighbor is not there and you wanna help with the garbage cans, you can do that. So there's many measures as to how people can get involved, and it's very, very simple. I mean, tomorrow morning, and I know that. I mean, there's a lot of pride in this city, and people want to have, like, let's say, the front yard, impeccable. They'll get the broom out and do what they have to do. It's something they already do. So we're just saying, like, just help us do this, help us achieve exactly what we want to do. And remember, Aaron, you've had the mayor a couple of times in interview, and we've always said we need to get back to basics in Montreal. And getting back to basics is having a clean city, a safe city. Those are the two pillars of what we're trying to do, and this is what we're focusing on right now.
And restoring that pride. When you talk about people taking care of their own lawns and their own sidewalks, that's something, it seems to me, 2 generations ago, was kind of routine. I think some of that has been lost or disappeared, and I'm not sure exactly why. Maybe people think, and I know we've had some callers earlier in the week, suggesting, this should be the city's job. I pay enough taxes. I don't want to have to do this, which I think is a pretty terrible attitude, but I'm sure there are people out there thinking the same thing. So it's nice to see an administration saying, no, it's not just the administration. You do have a responsibility as a citizen to do your part. I will ask one other question, because we're going to have to wrap up here, which is with respect to, this whole idea of cleaning up the city and making Montreal more attractive. Is this step one of the plan? Because there are not a lot of details beyond what we're talking about today. What's next? What other plans do you have?
So, you know what? We're I'm going to say this like a cute little expression. It's the first kick at the can, if I could put it this way. But we're putting resources. But one of the things that is absolutely constant with the mayor and me is we're trying things. Right, so we feel very confident about this plan, but we won't have any issue adjusting it as we go along. So that's the one thing. And I've got to tell you, Aaron, whenever you talk about garbages and cleanliness, the passion this subject brings into people, the amount of texts I received yesterday of people wanting to contribute and say, hey, you know what, I'm going to do the front of my shop. I'm going to do my part. So we need to work on this all together. So this is a very first step. We wanted to show the way, and we wanted, as an administration, to say, you know what, we got elected on this, we're delivering on it, and now let's make it happen all together.
Just to wrap up, part of this, will there be a public awareness campaign, TV, newspaper, radio ads, that kind of a thing, which would seem a natural to get people more involved? Is that part of the plan? Can you reveal that?
No. So we won't be doing a big media campaign. We'll use all the social medias of the city to do just that. It's just a matter of being responsible with our money right now.
And last question, ticketing. There are places around the world I'm sure you're familiar with, and if you decide to litter on a sidewalk, that can not only get you fined, it can get you thrown in jail. Or would we be considering ticketing perhaps as a way to send the message home?
We do have inspectors that go around the city to do this. Not my first choice. I think the step we need to take is to make sure to bring everybody on board and bring that pride back, like you were mentioning before.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Monsieur Pinard, appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You know what? Gotta like that. As I said, step in the right direction and hope to see this continue to follow through. And I like the part that they're involving downtown merchants as well, because that was something the last administration seemed to take for granted. So happy with that.
It's the sounds of your city. The Montreal Now podcast with Aaron Rand.
It's not every day you make the New York Times in Montreal, but this is one of those stories. I don't think anyone could have seen this coming. I love the headline, which simply says, "Looking for rotisserie chicken heaven? It's in Montreal." Now, if you've grown up in this city, you know we have been blessed, apparently, with some wonderful yet simple chicken restaurants, right? If you think back, I lived in the West End, so for me, it was either Chalet Barbecue or Côte Saint-Luc Barbecue for so many years. That tradition continues, though it's now been elevated to a bit of a higher status and to get noticed in the New York Times. Well, look out. Thought we'd talk to the author. Brett Anderson is the food reporter for the New York Times. He's actually based in New Orleans. He is on the line. Mr. Anderson, thanks for your time this afternoon.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, who turned you on to the chicken situation here? How did you find out about it?
Well, actually, the woman who became my wife. We took a trip to Montreal when we first started dating some 15 years ago, and she took me to Romados, the Portuguese rotisserie, on that trip where we got the chicken and also the butter tarts. And ever since, I've made going to get rotisserie chicken sort of part of my ritual whenever I go to Montreal, and which I do as much as I can. It's one of my favorite cities.
Oh, that's nice to hear. You also, and I love the way, you framed it, because Montreal already known for things like bagels and, of course, smoked meat and poutine, and now rotisserie chicken apparently joins the list, which is kind of nice to see.
I thought it ought to be on that list, the way I sort of see the way that chicken is part of the culture in Quebec. And then, I reached out to Marc-Olivier Frappier, who opened Rôtisserie La Lune, to talk on the phone about this, and, discovered that, he was inspired by this deep tradition that you have in Quebec.
He's going to join us, by the way, in just a sec, so we'll talk to him about that, because La Lune, which, of course, turns into one of the best restaurants in the city, serving, of all things, barbecue chicken or rotisserie chicken, if you will. I would ask, by the way, with respect to, what's in America versus what we have here, is there nothing comparable in the U.S. to this?
Well, we have rotisserie chicken, of course. It's become almost inescapable in some ways. It's for sale often in grocery stores, sort of the big discount chain stores, and has been embraced as something that's just a very affordable way to get dinner on the table at night. When you bring it home, we don't really have it in the same context as you see it in Montreal, in these restaurants that have been around for a really long time that specialize in it. And certainly we don't have it the way that it's presented at La Lune.
Yeah. It's not a matter of going out to a U.S. restaurant and ordering, chicken necessarily, not rotisserie chicken anyway, like it is here. So I understand the difference, right? It's not like going to Costco and buying one of their chickens and taking it home.
There's nothing romantic about that.
Fair enough. It's always nice to hear the perspective from someone from, another country, in your case, from someone writing for the New York Times. The food scene in Montreal, though, has gotten, I think, pretty good reviews over the years. What did you find when you most recently came here? Still considered one of the better foodie cities anywhere?
Well, I can certainly consider it to be that. And, one of the things that drew my attention for this particular story is, the people behind La Lune also had been behind some restaurants that I've loved over the years in Montreal. Right. Particular Vin Papillon, where Marco was a chef earlier in his career and the founder, and then also Mon Lapin, which is the people that, it's the same owners as La Lune. And those are some of I quite literally take trips to Montreal specifically to eat in those places.
Wow.
And I'm also a big fan of L'Express. But I eat all around Montreal, and like I say, I really do try to get there. Well, I live in New Orleans, but I'm originally from the north. I'm from Minnesota, and so I actually am attracted somewhat to the winter.
Well, we should thank
might be a little unusual.
Yeah, we should thank your wife for turning you on to Montreal. Then I guess thank you to your wife. We appreciate that.
I will extend those thanks, sir.
Appreciate the time. Thank you so much. I want to get to Marc-Olivier Frappier, yes, the owner of Rôtisserie La Lune, chef formerly, of course, over at Vin Papillon, I believe at Joe B for some time, where I probably first met him. Marco, how you doing? You okay?
Yeah, we're good. We're having quite a day over here.
I bet you are. First of all, you must have known, because I know he talked to you about this, but how crazy to be in the New York Times.
It was amazing. I mean, when Brett reached out to write that article, rotisserie chicken was my first job, a passion of mine. It was my utmost pleasure, and I was very proud to take him around and show him all my favorite places. So he had a few places in mind, but I took him to Chalet Barbecue, Romados, La Lune, spoke to him about the history of Saint-Hubert and Laurier Barbecue that's now closed. So we went everywhere. It was pretty fun.
Must have been an awful lot of fun. How did you even, you start off, you're working as a chef, you own a couple of restaurants now. Was the chicken thing just part of growing up in Montreal? Because that's what we all did. We go to Chalet or Côte Saint-Luc or whatever it was. That's where you got the inspiration from?
Well, exactly. I'm from Saint-Hyacinthe on the South Shore. So we had Sipère Barbecue and Saint-Hubert also, that was
sure.
Back in the day,
yeah.
The reference still is very present in Quebec. That was my first job. So my first job was rôtisseur in Saint-Hubert in Saint-Hyacinthe, and I've always thought that one day I would open my own rotisserie. I've opened Mon Lapin, Vin Papillon as the chef at Joe Beef for a number of years. But, the rotisserie restaurant, not the rotisserie chicken, but the rotisserie restaurant, definitely is a very Quebec, very Montreal thing. You realize it when you travel. There's not many places in the world that have restaurants that are based around rotisserie chicken where you can go eat and have, the coleslaw and the bun and the fries. And that's the Quebec, that's the Montreal trattoria, that's the real Montreal bistro family restaurant is the rotisserie restaurant.
By the way, did you ever think that, you open a rotisserie chicken restaurant and suddenly, you're in the Michelin Guide, you get that kind of recognition, all you're doing is serving chicken. And I say all you're doing because you look at some of the restaurants around town, some of the better known restaurants that, serve what we would call very fancy food that have been noticed for many, many years. And suddenly here's a rotisserie chicken showing up on a best of list.
That's incredible. Honestly, that's not why we opened it, obviously. But we do take a lot of pride in our ingredients, and the service is a big part of the restaurant. We wanted to take rotisserie restaurant. We don't do takeout. We focus on our dining room. We wanted to build a beautiful dining room, focus on service, and have it around chicken. So we work with the same ingredients that we would at Mon Lapin. That's what we serve at the rotisserie. So there's a level of care that goes into Rotisserie La Lune, that the same level that goes into Mon Lapin.
Yeah, and great food is great food is great food. And obviously you've had a lot of celebrity visits, I would think, as well.
Really? Like who?
Have you not?
I mean, we've had a lot of people from Quebec. We're in the Rosemont, so a lot of the artist community are from here.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have.
When I said celebrities, I noticed Harley Finkelstein, who's the CEO of Shopify, Canadian company, says this is his favorite restaurant, not in the city, but possibly, I think he said on the planet.
Oh my God! Yeah, Harley's been really
pretty nice.
Yeah, pretty nice to us about that. Yeah. It's fun to have him around. It's fun to also have him come to the restaurant and talk with him, talk business with him. What a pleasure to have him in Montreal.
But now, we have to wrap up. Has Justin and Katie been there yet?
We're waiting for them. We save a table for them every night by the window. So, whatever they want, it's saved, réservé.
I think his brother's on the show tomorrow with Andrew Carter, so we'll let them know there's a table for Justin and Katie at La Lune whenever they want to go. Marco, congratulations. Nice to see you, and as I said, great respect for you and the restaurant as well. It's nice for Montreal to boot, so thank you and congratulations.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having us.
Take good care. All right, there you go. Marc-Olivier Frappier from La Lune, the restaurant that's mentioned, as well as others, by the way, to be fair, in that article in the New York Times.
Listen live to Montreal Now with Aaron Rand, weekdays from 2 until 6. Miss something? Find on-demand highlights at CJAD800.com or on the free iHeartRadio app.
Canadian women are looking for more out of themselves, their businesses, their elected leaders, and the world around them.
And that's why we're thrilled to introduce the Honest Talk podcast.
I'm Jennifer Stewart.
And I'm Catherine Clark. And in this podcast, we interview Canada's most inspiring women.
Entrepreneurs, artists, athletes, politicians, and newsmakers, all at different stages of their journey.
So if you're looking to connect, then we hope you'll join us.
Listen to the Honest Talk podcast on iHeartRadio or wherever you listen to your podcasts.